So it looks like we have a breakfast buzz and we have fruit and yogurt and I'd rather sleep. If anybody else, yeah, welcome. Come on into our informal little breakfast buzz chat. So we've got a poll going up. We're just going to be very scientific here. What's your breakfast food? Go ahead and respond to the poll if you can see it. If you can't see it, let me know and I'll try to do something different. Also, if you have a favorite coffee cup in front, feel free to turn on your camera if you have that capability. I will, let's see. So far we've got a fruit and yogurt and I'd rather sleep. While we're kind of waiting for a few more maybe responses, if everybody's with us. Here's my coffee cup. Nurses call the shots. We give a lot of shots, nurses do. And this is my ultimate favorite though. Okay, but select 2. Okay. Cool. Diet, nice. Well, you could always put your diet in your favorite cup. I'll have to show you my favorite cup. So the crisis clinic is on fire and fixing to go over the waterfall. And I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Let me change here. All right. So I don't have a moderator in this session. Are you all able to come off mute and just like talk or show your camera or anything? Do you all have that capability?
Can you hear me?
Hi, is this Jenny?
Yes, so yes, I can.
All right, fantastic. Anybody else? This is going to be a very informal coffee chat, so I hope you're awake so we can chat.
My microphone is activated.
I heard you for a little bit.
My microphone is activated.
Okay, sounds great. All right, anyone else? Megan, Shen? Good morning, Stephanie. Welcome. We're going to do just a roundtable coffee chat here. We're going to talk a little bit about co-teaching, and I hope this is going to be a very interactive session. Good morning. And Stephanie, if you are welcome, if you feel like it, you're welcome just to come off mute and participate in our discussion. It looks like we have a small group today, which actually is kind of fun because we have a little bit more time to share ideas. So I'm going to go ahead now and hold on. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump in. Co-teaching. What is your experience? Either in the chat or it's easier if you just come off mute, I think. But what is your experience in co-teaching, if any? I'd love to hear, and also what area of a content subject matter do you teach?
This is Jenny. I teach math and I have absolutely no experience in co-teaching.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. What else? Who else? Someone else.
So this is Stephanie. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. So I have my first experience co-teaching is actually this semester, and we don't I don't officially co-teach, but I'm teaching a dual credit class. And
oh, nice.
There is an instructor. She's an honest to God instructor. She's in the classroom, and she's supposed to be just a facilitator, right? But obviously she's got a role in the classroom, and I've struggled a little bit trying to find that right balance between. So the class I teach is an online class, and it's designed as an online class, but of course
Okay.
she's got to use this class very differently because she's got the students actually in the classroom. And I've struggled with both the setup, because it's different, right? It's different because it has to
Oh,
be.
sure.
So,
And what is your subject area?
oh, biology.
And that's a tough one to teach online. Dual credit for high school. Yeah. Okay. That is super challenging.
And yeah, I think we've both struggled a little bit finding our place, right? Because as this is in academia, we just got tossed in, right? We're just like,
Oh
here,
yeah.
you do. And we're like, okay. So yeah. I think we're finding our stride. But yeah, I'd like ideas.
Yeah. It's a bumpy start, and it can even be bumpy even when you've been doing this for a while. So yeah. Anyone else would like to share what your experience is? And I'd love to know, at least especially even maybe in the chat, what your content area is, because that can kind of guide our discussion today.
This is Megan Weatherford. Can you guys hear me
Hi,
okay?
Megan. Yeah.
Okay. I teach psychology at SEC, and I don't have any co-teaching experience personally as an instructor, but I know those were always some of my favorite courses as, as a college student. So I'm very interested in the idea of it and maybe trying to get something together to offer as like a higher level um, psychology course that maybe melds with sociology or some other social science.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I love that idea of trying to somehow blend, maybe that in healthcare we call that interprofessional or interdisciplinarian, but yeah, that applies to any topic area. So yeah, that's really cool. Great idea. Someone else.
Hello,
Hello.
this is Shen.
Hi, Shen.
Yeah, I teach physics, but I just teach the class by myself. But I used to teach a engineering class for UK because we have a Paducah campus downstairs, and then three of us we taught one class, and then each of us just taught one portion.
Right, right. That's kind of a model that we do here, for our nursing. So yeah, that's awesome. So the areas of growth that I have discovered, I'll just share a little bit about my experience in co-teaching is, one, I feed off the other teacher or the facilitator's knowledge, experience, expertise, creativity. I feel that I get so much more out of co-teaching because there might be some subject matter that isn't as familiar, or I didn't actually have that bedside experience, in nursing, but then I'm working with a colleague who worked there for 15 years. So together we can kind of come together. We each teaching to our strengths, and I think the students get the best of both worlds. However, good morning, welcome. We have more people joining, that's awesome. However, I'm getting back here to, there are some bumpy roadblocks as well, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how to manage those bumps and improve our courses so that our learners have the best experience possible. I think open communication is essential. I think what Stephanie has already brought to the table, that as working as with a facilitator in the classroom, and then she's managing the online portion, that open communication is so essential, that all the faculty involved, whether it's 2 people in a class, 3 people in a class, the most I've worked with so far is 4 of us teaching one med-surg course. And starting out, it was a little bumpy. Who's teaching what? How are you going to present it? The other thing that we found is that our learners needed to understand that they had several teachers, because the other bump was the students was confused. Okay, so which one of you do I ask a question? I need to send an email or a course message. Which one of you do I address it to? Everybody? Only one person? So we kind of had to work some of those things out. And I think that is going to be really specific to your particular course and how you have it set up. But the main takeaway is just make sure that is very, very clear from the beginning. Work out some of those details even before the students even get in the course. Also, the faculty must agree on shared goals. We have to make sure that what we're doing obviously aligns with our curricula, aligns with our student learning outcomes, and that the objectives from one module to another module still kind of blend. Even though maybe I'm teaching the first module and my co-worker is teaching the second module, we have to be sure that those objectives are still kind of flowing from one module into the next. Otherwise, it breaks the course up and it feels more like 5 separate small courses instead of one flowing course. So when you're brainstorming, you want to figure out who is teaching what content. Be very, very intentional about that. And then how are the activities divided up? Being sure that the activities maybe in the first module can then kind of scaffold into the second module and then into the third. So that maybe I'm teaching the first module and I do a really complicated activity that the students really are not prepared for. So again, we have to be sure. Yeah, Stephanie, I love that. We have to be sure that our content is accessible to those students and that it unfolds in a way that the assessments are clear and one session is not too hard, not harder than another. So our primary goals are obviously to teach people, okay? We're in the business of education. We want to help our learners become better thinkers, critically think, and then be prepared for the workforce. So what are your thoughts, even if you had experience or if you haven't had experience in co-teaching, what are your thoughts about a goal? And I'm just going to start writing them down. But I think that way I can summarize. So feel free to either in the chat or come off mute. And what do you think a goal is for co-teaching?
I'll jump in. Everybody's got different, I mean, you've already mentioned this. Everybody's got differing expertise, right? In your nursing classes, you've got some nurses, you've got some instructors who don't have the real world experience. In my dual credit situation, I have experience with my field and my students, right? My college students, but these kids are 14, 15 years old. And so the instructor has the experience with what they can do. And so I'm very much relying on her to tell me, yeah, no, they can't handle this. And there's got to be an in-between somewhere where she adds her expertise. So expertise would be the word.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I've never thought about teaching a specific dual enrollment. I know that sometimes I have students, high school students, in my online class, but I've never necessarily taught with a facilitator. So what a great journey. Someone else, primary goals. Anyone else?
This is Megan
Okay.
again.
Yeah, hi Megan, go ahead.
I think for me, as far as what I perceive to be a goal, if we were ever able to do this, is to really I guess, model group work and teamwork and just how that can be functional and effective, because so many students really shy away from, any type. When we say you've got a group project in this class, they absolutely freak out. And so just showing them that
Yeah.
that can work, and it can be, an efficient approach. And also, just in what I was hoping to be able to do, just really help them make those mental connections between what one concentration area covers and how it expands into so many other fields, and just how it's applicable to so much more than just that, niche.
I love that. How one field expands into others. So if we think about our learners, yeah, definitely. Stephanie mentioned adding diversity. Absolutely. When you're co-teaching, I'm bringing in my kind of, passions, and then my co-instructor is bringing in their kind of passions. And the students do see that sometimes like our different passions might or may not align, but they also see how we work through that. So I think that's a great idea to model that teamwork and group work. How often in the real world are our students going to graduate and then work in a silo? That's probably not going to happen. So yeah, those are great comments. I'm going to share this with you. This was just a random quote, and it's business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. And I thought that was really, really neat because we are in the business of education and we're trying to teach ourselves out of a job, um, right? We're trying to teach our students out of our course. I feel like if one of my online students, for instance, for medical terminology is one of the online courses that I teach, I feel like if they have to keep coming back to my course, then I've not done my job. I want them to graduate out of my course and move on. There's always one coming. And also in education, I think there's always a new innovation coming. There's always a new technology coming. And sometimes when we're working by ourselves, it's too hard to keep up with all of that. But if you've got that colleague who is helping with your course, then between the 2 or 3 of you or 4 of you, or in our nursing here at ACTC, there's about 13 of us, and we all literally work together on a daily basis. So just some tips how to actually plan for this, okay? So the very beginning, hopefully you have plenty of time to plan. How often does that actually happen, right? Okay, so anyway, in the best world, we have plenty of time. We can plan our objectives. We can align our course with our SLOs. We can decide who's teaching what. How are those assessments going to be scaffolding? We're going to communicate with our program coordinators, if you have one, your associate deans, if you have one. IT support, definitely. If you have a course designer, I would definitely suggest reaching out to course design. The amount of information and just support that course design instructional designers can bring is phenomenal. Make sure that the students know who's teaching what, and then who do they contact for help? Okay, is it if you have a question about modules 1, 2, and 3, contact instructor A, or if you have a general question, contact instructor B, or just make sure the students kind of know how to reach out so they don't feel just floundering. When you're designing and you're having co-teaching, I think it adds a lot of creativity, and you actually have a little bit more prep time. Because if I'm just responsible for, say, designing 2 of the 6 modules in my course, I can really put a lot of energy into those 2 modules, those 2 assessments, those activities that can, hopefully go above and beyond what minimum standard would be. You're going to want to look at, for your strategy, you're going to want to look at like the big picture, holistic, okay? Look at the literature, go through a literature search, EBSCOhost or whatever, and see what's out there. What are other people doing? Are there any studies about co-teaching that what works, what doesn't? Is it evidence-based? And then just launch it. See what happens. go from there. And feel free to be flexible. Realize, especially if you're co-teaching a course for the first time, realize there might be some bumps in the road. It's okay to have problems. It's okay to make mistakes. And I think what we had talked about before, how this modeling of group work, that the students can see that just because something doesn't work the first time doesn't mean that it's a complete failure. It's just a problem to be solved, and we'll solve it together. Anytime I think we're talking about course design, we want to think about accessibility. We want to think about an engaging course. We want to be sure that our information is chunked, and it's organized, it's professionally presented. And then I think those instructors, the most important part is that they need us. Even though it's an online course, the students still need to think that it's not a computer teaching them, but that it's a real person with a real personality. And if you have those co-teaching, maybe sometimes you have co-collabs, and everybody comes to the table, and you've got both teachers there, interacting and bouncing ideas off of each other, kind of what we said about that modeling. I know we've got just a few more minutes, so anybody else want to come off mute and think about some ideas that how co-teaching could put that student in the center? Some activities, or maybe some assessments, maybe some, how are we going to balance what they need to know and in the context of how they can actually learn it? Anybody have any ideas? Okay, so I'll share a couple of things then. I would want to make sure that those activities are student-centered, that they are relevant to the course and leveled for the type of learner that I have. So I think Stephanie had mentioned how she's trying to transition from the adult ed, higher ed kind of scene into that high school where you're teaching teenagers now. That would be a big shift. The lived experiences that high school students have obviously are going to be extremely different. Their perspectives, their goals, how to engage them and make them care, right? Like make me care. So the different types of assessments that if you're co-teaching, you can come up with. So maybe one of the constructors is a really good test writer and just writes fantastic test items. And then maybe the other instructor is a little bit more for the hands-on, maybe can design really good group activities, case studies, maybe even like virtual labs, okay? And then you put those two together and boom, you've got an amazing course. Obviously, we're going to want to appeal to the different learning styles. Again, I think that's where the co-teaching kind of can really, really shine, because my learning style might be different than my co-teacher's learning style. So as long as we decide to come together and integrate those and not clash, and me say, well, my learning style is the better one, and I don't even know where you're coming from. We definitely have to keep an open mind. Putting the student at the center. It's not about me. It's not about the instructors. It's not about who can shine. It's about how to make this course better for the students so we can graduate them and work ourselves out of a job. Does that make sense? So anybody else, any thoughts of this before we move to a different little subtopic?
Good morning, Melissa. This is Kim Calebs, and I actually do have a comment based on my own experience actually as a student. Let me jump on camera here. Hold on, sorry.
Yeah, awesome.
So my MBA program was 100% team taught, and one of the things that was so wonderful about that in terms of helping the students learn workplace collaboration skills, how to be professional with somebody who's completely outside your discipline was what the faculty who were co-teaching were modeling. So one consideration, I don't know what everyone's discipline is, but one consideration is to find people who are somewhat far removed. I mean, obviously still within your discipline, but from an area of interest or an area of expertise standpoint, if you can be really kind of different in who you are and how you approach things, it can be just tremendously valuable to the students.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you can imagine us faculty, nursing faculty here, we are completely integrated now. The PN, the practical nursing, the associate degree nursing, and the bridge program. We all teach in each other's courses. And so, for instance, right now I'm teaching the freshman practical nursing, and then in the next semester I'll be teaching the graduating ADN class. And last spring, I taught in the graduating bridge class, and there was 4 of us teaching it. Also, I work in the simulation, so I teach pretty much every cohort in the sim lab. I'll have 200 students come through the sim lab in a semester, and several of them will be there 2 and 3 times. So I do a lot of collaboration with those course leads. I have to be sure that what I'm teaching in the lab is aligning to the course lead and the vision of the course lead, because if I'm just kind of out there in left field, it's not fair to the students, and it's really not effective. So in summary, co-teaching, try it, you might like it. There are going to be some bumps in the road. We did talk about a few of those. Hopefully, maybe we got a few little tips and tricks. I think the only drawback that we have found so far is that the students have to kind of flip sometimes and adjust to a different teaching style. So if I'm lecturing, say, Module 1, and then my colleague is lecturing Module 2, and then I go back to 3, and my colleague goes back to 4, if my colleague and I don't have, I don't want to say we want to be cookie cutters, obviously, because we each have our own styles, but we have to at least be on the same page that the students don't have to flip it dramatically in their learning style, their comfort zone. And we generally write our exams together, because again, I don't want my exam to be like harder or easier, or too many alternate items, and then the other instructor, they didn't do that. And so as long as you have open communication and you're really willing to embrace those differences and kind of not just stay in your own lane, but to branch out, then I think it's a win-win for everybody. Any closing comments here? We've got just a couple minutes left. I'm going to switch over to the chat here. Anything else in the chat? Leah?
Good morning. How are you? I'm switching on my camera so I can try to be inclusive here.
Yeah.
So I think this presentation and conversation was really good, Melissa. You did a great job. I just want to say, when I was at the University of Kentucky, right before I started here, I worked for the College of Pharmacy, and we had completely redone our curricula to be co-taught, so that for the pharmacy students, the practitioners, the pharmacist practitioners were co-teaching disease state with the scientists who study that disease state.
That's
and
amazing.
It was so transformative for the students. They made that switch because they started to notice that test scores were not going down. Students at UK are some of the best pharmacy students in the nation, but they were starting to get some concerns from oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name, for preceptors. Thank gosh, my brain is not working. I had COVID. I can't remember any words now.
I tell you.
It's rough. But the preceptors were starting to say, students are coming in and they just can't seem to put the science together with the response. the medical response to it. And so they made this change based on a lot of preceptor information that they were getting. And we really started to see a change in the students' ability to do better during their precepting year as a result of this kind of co-curricular approach. However, not co-curricular, but dual approach to teaching. But it was so hard for our faculty to figure out the balance between who teaches what, how they interact with one another. When are they in the classroom at the same time? When are they in the classroom at different times? Now, these were all face-to-face classes, so it was a little different. But I think, you know, you kind of pointed to just really communicating with whoever you're co-teaching with. And I think it's so important to build that relationship with them and really have a come to Jesus conversation about exactly what you're trying to accomplish and exactly your philosophy on how you will accomplish that. And the faculty pairs that did that well, I could see a big difference in how they manage their courses. But it's not easy for anyone who wants to try this. So thank you for leading this session. It was great.
Oh, well, thank you. Those were great comments. I always learn so much from these kind of conferences. I think it's much more informative just to all these minds coming together, all these different ideas. And I don't know about you, but I took a whole page of notes, and hopefully we can start incorporating some of this a little bit more. So I think we'll go ahead and hop off here. I know our next sessions are starting very soon. My email, if anybody has any questions or comments or whatever, email melissa.green, and I'll see y'all at the next session.